Hi everyone, my name's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you if these TikTok books are worth the hype. There is this whole phenomenon called booktok where people create TikToks about books. That's really it. And it has sort of revolutionized the book industry. If you go to any bookstore right now, I'm sure they have a booktok shelf that is just a bunch of books that have been hyped on booktok. And it has really skyrocketed some authors that maybe would not have been as well known otherwise. Now, some of the books are incredibly well-known books that were already very popular, so it caused people to want to talk about them on booktok. However, some of these were books that maybe would not have gotten big. Some of them are like self-published books that ended up getting a publisher because of how much people were talking about them on booktok and wanting to read them. I have been too scared to get into booktok myself, but I do love watching it, and I have found some really great recommendations from it, honestly. A lot of the books on this list are some of my favorites. There are more yeses than nos on whether these books are worth it to read. So booktok is doing something right. I will preface this entire list by saying that just because I don't like a book does not mean you shouldn't read it or that you won't like it. Obviously these books are well loved because everyone's talking about them. Just some of them were not for me. They weren't my favorite. Some of them I did enjoy, but I'm still gonna say no to because it just didn't become a favorite for me. But again, these are all well-loved books. They are books that are talked about all the time. So don't hesitate to pick them up if the premise sounds cool. So without further ado, let's get into it. With this first one, I am hoping not to stir the pot too much right off the bat. This is a book that is very well loved by an author that is huge. She has kind of like this cult following on social media of people that are obsessed with her books. And that is Colleen Hoover. It Ends With Us. This book is the only book I've read by Colleen Hoover. I've heard that some of her books have a little bit more problematic tropes, and so I was very hesitant to go into this one. This book follows a woman who falls in love as a young girl. However, this boy moves away, and then it follows her as an adult, and she falls in love with this man who she ends up marrying, and she is living through an abusive relationship. I didn't love this book. When I'm reading a romance book, I'm looking for the happily ever after romance books. This book talks about a lot of important topics. It deals with a lot of heavy topics. There is physical and emotional abuse on the page, so there were times where it was a little difficult to read. The reason I think this book is not worth the hype is because it was just kind of slow. I was not entertained throughout. It was very predictable. I think, again, it was very important, and I think that possibly for some abuse survivors, this book could be very important because you see someone enduring and persevering, going through this very hard time. However, for me, I just wasn't a huge fan. I think a lot of it might have been the hype surrounding it. Like, I wonder if I'd pick this up separately without knowing anything about it, I would like it. But then again, I probably wouldn't have picked it up if I hadn't seen all the hype because I don't read this genre very often. I don't know if I will be reading some more Colleen Hoover books or not. I'm not saying this book is not good to some people because obviously it is. And if this sounds like something that you are interested in, please do pick it up. It has a huge following for a reason. People are allowed to like books that I don't like. However, for me, I just found it to be a little slow, a little predictable, and a story I've heard before, basically, just explicitly put on the page. So just not for me. The next hyped booktok book is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This was a very interesting story. I went into it knowing next to nothing about it, and it follows this woman who has tried to commit suicide, and she is taken to this midnight library where she is given the chance to relive her life multiple times over if she had made a different decision. So basically there's these books that she can take off the shelf and relive a life as if she had made a different decision in the past. So it kind of has this like episodic storytelling theme running through of you live this one life of hers, and then you live a different life of hers, and then a different life of hers, and you see her try to figure out what life would be the best which decision would have made her have the best life. I'm going to say no. I do not think this book is worth the hype. I thought it was boring. I thought that the premise was cool. However, going through and living each of these lives just felt repetitive. Like, obviously each of the lives was different, but the themes that the book was trying to push, they were really pushing. Like, it was obviously pushing a theme that we see a lot in media, and that is the theme of don't have regrets. Live your life to the fullest. Just do your best every step of the way. Do what you can. And this book really pushes that. It really pushes the idea of life is what you make it. And you can tell that that's where this is going from her first relived life. And so doing each of them just felt like, okay, we get it. Like, it felt like it was kind of shoving this theme down our throats. Like, live life how you want to live. Like, I don't know. It just felt very forced and boring at times. It was very much so, like, it felt like a fictional self-help book almost, which to some people, maybe they love that. And obviously this book is a well-loved book, so it's worked for some people. But for me, I just felt like it was really, like, instead of showing you this theme, it was telling you this theme, and I was just not a big fan. The next book is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn, Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a hugely hyped book that is now getting a movie adaptation. I will butt in here to say I wish it was a TV adaptation and that it was 7 episodes and each episode focused on one husband. It would have been fantastic, but here we are. So this is a story that follows Evelyn Hugo, who is a Hollywood movie star, and she is notorious for how many husbands she has had in the industry. And so we follow her story as she tells it to this young woman through each of her husbands and what her life has been like as this famous biracial woman of color in the Hollywood industry in the 50s and 60s. I am going to say, yes, this book is worth the hype. The ending broke me in half. I was sobbing. I read this as a book club with 2 of my best friends and my sisters, and it was so good. I do not normally read like a contemporary fiction like this. The premise to me is something that I would have never picked up, but my sister chose this book for our book club, so I was like, I guess I gotta read it, and I'm very glad I did. It is so touching. Evelyn Hugo, who is a queer, biracial woman just trying to live her life, who marries all these men in order to further her career, and it shows how her power-hungry nature has bitten her in the ass a few times, but also helped and made her this successful woman she is today. And it is a beautiful, beautiful story. I've never read any other Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. I don't know if I will. A lot of the other ones don't sound very appealing to me, but this one really worked for me, and I would say, yes, this one is worth the hype. The next book is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and I'm just going to go ahead and say, yes, 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 this is worth the hype. One of the best books I've ever read. It is incredible. Read this book. This is a retelling of the mythical Achilles and his life with Patroclus, and it is so beautiful. Their story has always been questioned on whether they were best friends or if they were like together, because they were buried together and everything about their story was very romantic. However, throughout history, many people have said, oh, they were just really good friends. But this retelling shows it as their relationship. And Madeline Miller just has such a way with words. Her prose really makes you feel for these 2 men. This is all told from Patroclus's point of view, and you really get to see Achilles as a regular man and as this mythical hero, because Patroclus sees him both ways. And this book is just so beautifully written. The romance is incredible. They learn from each other, they learn about each other, and everyone knows how it ends. Obviously, they die. So the ending is just like heart-wrenching. The way Madeline Miller expresses the grief and the pain that these 2 go through is just thinking about it, I just got chills just thinking about it. This book is just like so beautiful. I'm really hoping to reread it soon. I listened to it as an audiobook, and It was obviously so stunning, but I really want to sit down and read it physically so I can like slowly digest this prose because it is just so beautiful. So yes, read this book. It is incredible. The next book on my list is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. This is a contemporary fiction book that follows a woman named Amira, who is a babysitter for a wealthy white woman. And one night she is at the grocery store late at night with the child because there was a family emergency, so she just takes the child to the grocery store to get her out of the house. However, a security guard just sees a young black woman with a young white child and accuses her of kidnapping. The whole ordeal is caught on film and is then released to the media. And the mother of the child, Alex, is well-meaning, but pushes some boundaries. She wants to help Amira and is very confused when Amira does not want the help. And what follows is this story of privilege and racism that is really well told. I would say this is worth the hype. However, check the content warnings. It is a tougher read. It really does a good job of showcasing that sometimes you can help too much. It really shows that you have to respect someone's boundaries. If they are not wanting your help, then do not give it, because sometimes it is too much for them. This book really shows Amira, she just wants to live her life. She's just trying to figure out like how to get health insurance and like be a young adult. And Alex is insistent on helping her like exact vengeance on this whole situation, and Amira just wants to get past it. As someone who has lived her whole life experiencing racism, this is just kind of another thing that happened to her that just blew out of proportion, and she just doesn't want to live in it anymore. And Alex is insistent on trying to help her. And the things these two women learn about themselves as they go through this whole process is really beautiful to see. I think it was definitely a tougher read for me. I, however, still recommend it. I would say it is worth the hype. It is a debut author, which is, I always love supporting a debut author, so I would say definitely go read this book. The next book I might cause a stir, and this is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I would say this book is not worth the hype. I read From Blood and Ash and actually really enjoyed it. So you may be wondering, why is it not worth the hype? First, I'll say this book follows a woman named Poppy who is the maiden, and she cannot show her face, and she is supposed to be kept pure, and she lives in this like dark world. And when she gets a new bodyguard named Hawk, a romance occurs kind of thing. And what follows is this like steamy romance novel, you know. And I liked the first one, and I liked the second one. The second one definitely escalates a lot from the first one. We get past this like maidenhood thing. However, the third one was such a disappointment that I wish I hadn't even read the first two. The third one I got about 20% in, and it was just like info dumping. Nothing was really happening. We were being told instead of shown. And so I went to some reviews, and all the reviews were like, why does this book not even get good till 80%? And I was like, excuse me? Like, I am not about to read 60% more of this book and then only have the ending be fun. Like, that it was a long book too. Like, it is not like a short, quick read. Like, I'm not about to be bored for 80% of a book and then have like a short chunk that is good. It is not worth my time. So the first book is actually pretty good. This series is well loved. I have heard some really big criticisms of the newest release though. I've heard that it is not good. Like, big fans of hers even were like, this book sucks. So, I don't know. Maybe don't read it. I didn't like the third book. Again, the first and the second were pretty good. They are not like revolutionary by any means, but they're fun, steamy romances. So like, they're fun. But the third one was so bad that like, I just wish I hadn't read it. I've wondered if it's because she's writing books so fast. Like, these books are coming out so quickly. I'm wondering if she's not like taking the time to fully come up with these ideas. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but they are not very good. And I did not enjoy the third one, and I probably will not be continuing on with this series at all. I do not know if I will continue her other books either. I have not decided. The next book on the BookTok Recommends list is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This book has some soda damage because a friend of a friend spilled stuff all over it. This one is hard for me to say yes or no to. Sarah J. Maas, the Throne of Glass series, which is her other big series, was kind of my first foray into young adult fantasy. I had obviously read some other fantasy books as a kid, like middle grade and children's fantasy. However, the world of young adult fantasy I didn't really get into until my best friend recommended I read Throne of Glass. So there's a lot of nostalgia wrapped up in these books for me. I have since been educated more from when I read these books initially and learned some of the more problematic tropes that are in Sarah J. Maas's books. And I think that this one is no exception. There's some questionable consent in this book. There is some just kind of like weird dynamics at play. However, when I first read them, I loved it. I loved this series. I do still think I like Throne of Glass better, which I think I am the minority in that opinion. Most people like this series better. Sarah J. Maas is one of those authors that has like a cult following. She has a huge following, and I used to be in that camp. I went to the book tour for Kingdom of Ash, got to meet her and get my book signed. Like, I was a huge fan as well. However, I've since been more educated on like some of these problematic tropes, and it's kind of tainted my relationship with her series. So this one is gonna be the only maybe on the list. I'm sure you've heard about this series. If you haven't already read it, I will leave that up to you if you would like to. The romance is very fun in the third book. The third book is probably the best of the series. This first one though is not as good. There's questionable consent, there's kind of like emotional abuse, there is just some things that are made to seem okay that are not, and I don't know. So this one is a maybe. The next book is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, and as you can see over here, I have basically an entire Christina Lauren shelf, so this is an automatic yes for me. I love Christina Lauren. The Unhoneymooners is such a fun book by them. It is a story of these two people that were in a wedding. They were the maid of honor and the best man, and they hate each other. However, when the groom and bride get very sick, they take their tickets and go on the honeymoon for them. And what follows is a cute, funny romance of like enemies to lovers. And I just really liked it. I think Christina Lauren, they do such an incredible job of romance. Like, just making romances believable. The banter is always good. The characters are always well fleshed out, and their romances are just, so good. A lot of their standalones are definitely less steamy than their series, so this book is not as steamy as some of their other books, but it is still very good and very cute. So I would definitely say yes, and then just like read all of their books because they're all really good. I just love Christina Lauren. The next book on the BookTok Recommends list is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This story is adorable. It follows Henry and Alex, who are the Prince of England and the first son of the United States, and they hate each other. And what follows is a enemies to lovers romance between the two, and you kind of get to see as they try to figure out how that will even work. This book has also got some of its own criticisms. A lot of people say that she created this like idealistic America. However, as a just fun romance book, I think it was very cute. I definitely agree with a lot of the criticisms. I think that yes, it is a very idealized America. She puts a lot of faith in the American people that maybe isn't warranted, but it kind of creates this like, well, this is where I wish America was kind of feeling. By the end of it, I was crying. But the relationship itself, the relationship between Henry and Alex is so adorable. It's got some of the best found family trope in this book, like the friendships they all make, and also like the steam factor. Whew! So good. She is a master at that, let me just say. So I definitely do recommend this book. I think it's good, but read it with a grain of salt. Maybe read some other reviews with some of the criticisms. The next book on the list is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. If you've watched some other videos on my channel, you will know I am a big Leigh Bardugo fan, and Shadow and Bone is no exception. I do think it is one of the weaker of her series, however, that does not mean it's bad. I still loved it, so I will recommend this one. I will say it is worth the hype. This is a YA fantasy series that follows a young woman who finds out that she has a magical power that is different from others, and she is brought into like this whole political maneuvering, and they're like trying to fight this darkness and blah blah blah. I won't get into the details because it is a little more complex, but it is a unique fantasy story that has been adapted for television now, and there are spin-off series, and the spin-off series Six of Crows is like incredible and one of my favorite series of all time, and it is necessary to read this series first. I did read Six of Crows first before reading Shadow and Bone because I didn't realize that it was a spin-off series, and then when I was writing my review of it or something, I was like looking at it on Goodreads, and I realized that I'd read it out of order. So then before I read Crooked Kingdom, I went back and read this Shadow and Bone series, and then came back to Crooked Kingdom. Man, they are so good. I just really love these books. Also, the TV adaptation is incredible, and I know they're filming season 2 right now, which I'm ecstatic for. So yes, definitely worth the hype. They do read a little younger, but I will not say that does not detract from the story. I love these books, and I love Leigh Bardugo. The next book on the list is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This book is one of V.E. Schwab's newer books. It came out last year, I believe, or maybe the year before. I don't remember. I think it was 2020. I honestly don't know. But it is newer, and this book I have seen people either really love or really hate. I'm in the camp of really love. A lot of people say it's boring, which, fair. Not a lot happens. However, V.E. Schwab is known for her incredible prose, and this book definitely delivers on that. It's about this young woman who makes a deal with this dark god in the forest because she does not want to be married to this boy that she has been put into an arranged marriage with. However, the dark god twists her words and makes it to where she cannot be remembered by anyone. So if she interacts with someone, as soon as they turn around, they do not remember she existed. When she meets a young man in New York City in the 2000s, she is remembered. He remembers her. The next time she comes back, he remembers her face and calls her out for trying to steal a book out of his bookstore. And what follows is this very touching romance of the two of them just kind of like getting to know each other. And we get to really see Addie experience what it's like to have a friend and someone that remembers them. And I just think it was a very touching book. The ending had me losing it. I was sobbing. The ending is so sad and so beautiful. I will say there's like an epilogue that I think we could have just not had. Like if the book had just ended at the ending of the book and didn't have the epilogue, I think it would have been better. I think that the epilogue was kind of unnecessary and kind of like changed the tone of the book, but I still think this book was incredible. I totally get why some people think it's boring. There really isn't a whole lot that happens in the book. However, I just thought it was very touching and well written. So I would recommend it. It's not super long. I mean, it's not like a tiny book, but it's only, it's 450 pages, so it's a little long, but I think it is well worth the read. The next book on the list is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This book also recently got a movie adaptation, and I did like this book. I would recommend it. I'll say it's worth the hype. I think it is maybe a little overhyped. It was good. It was definitely good. I think that I've read better romances though. This is a enemies to lovers office romance about these two people that work together and they hate each other and they're constantly antagonistic towards each other. And when they are both going up for the same job, they both agree that whoever gets it, the other will quit. And so what follows is them competing for this job, but also like having to spend a lot of time together. And it is a cute book. I think that it's definitely less steamy than some other books, but it is an enjoyable read. I have read some better office romances that are enemies to lovers. I will throw in a quick recommendation of Christina Lauren, who, again, one of my favorite romance authors. Beautiful Bastard is an office romance, enemies to lovers, that is way steamier. Very good book, very good series. The whole series is really good. So The Hating Game is definitely cute. I enjoyed it. I do not think it is the best romance I've ever read, but it is a good read, so I would recommend it. Is it worth the hype? Maybe a little overhyped, but I get why it's hyped, so definitely a cute read. The next series is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This one I kind of flipped back and forth on. I tried to read The Cruel Prince a few years ago and DNF'd it. I didn't really enjoy it. I thought it was boring. However, in 2020, I reread it. I read the whole series and enjoyed it. I thought they were cute. I thought the third book was rushed. I didn't love it. I didn't love the way it ended, but I liked it. However, I will say I don't think it's worth the hype. It is enjoyable. I did like reading it, but it is not the best YA fantasy out there. I think there is much better. I think it is overhyped. I think that the story is kind of unique. I don't know. It's just like, I never really felt like the romance was believable, and everyone like is always raving about this romance, and I just always thought it was like I didn't like it. I was like, he's a bully. Like, I get that it's enemies to lovers, but I didn't really like the romance, and that is a big part of the book. While I did enjoy this series and I enjoyed my reading experience, I do not think it is worth the hype. I think they're definitely overhyped. The next book on the list is The Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I have talked about Victoria Aveyard before. I really like her books. I like her as a person. I follow her on Instagram and she's freaking hilarious. So the Red Queen series is a series I read a while back. I read it probably like over 5 years ago. So I don't have it fresh in my mind. However, I did really enjoy reading them. I totally get the hype. I do think that they are worth the hype. I think they're fun to read. However, I have seen mixed reviews on them. Some people love them, some people hate them. I just think the premise was really unique. Again, I haven't read them in a long time, so I do not fully remember everything that goes on, but I know there's like a weird love triangle and an evil prince, and the magic is really cool. I definitely think that they are worth the hype, and I think they're worth the read if you are a fan of YA fantasy and like a little romance involved. I just think the world was really unique, and while I can't remember the details of the book because it's been a while, I can still remember the aesthetic of the book, and I can still remember like the feeling I felt while being in that world. I thought it was very fun and cool, so I definitely recommend this series. The next book is Circe by Madeline Miller. I have seen her name pronounced like a jillion different ways, so I'm gonna say Circe, but I am no expert, so I have no idea if that's actually how you pronounce it. I've seen very many different pronunciations, so I apologize if I am getting it wrong. But this is another mythological retelling by Madeline Miller. She was also the one that wrote Song of Achilles, which I talked about previously. This book follows Circe, who is one of the daughters of Helios. However, she is not as powerful as her father or as alluring as her mother. Power is soon discovered, and Zeus sees it as a threat. So he banishes her to her own island, and there she practices her witchcraft. She crosses paths with some of the most famous figures in mythology, and they get to also experience some of her occult powers. However, the world is dangerous for a woman living alone on an island, and she must protect herself at all costs. And what follows is the story of her just wanting to live her life, but being controlled by all of these gods, and it shows her grow in power, and it is a really beautiful retelling. I will say that I think Song of Achilles is a better book, but I think that is just a subjective thing. Obviously, I think that because I really like romance in stories, I really like the Song of Achilles. I thought it was a lot more touching and sad. However, this one has a lot of different themes. It follows a lot of themes of like misogyny and being a woman in the world and things like that. So I think it's definitely an important retelling, and I think it was really well done. I think Madeline Miller is incredible at writing retellings of mythology, and she posted on Instagram a few months ago that she is writing a Persephone retelling, which I think will be phenomenal. I'm very curious to see if she follows the more recent trend of making the Hades and Persephone relationship a cute, consensual one, or if she will go with the original story of Hades kidnapping Persephone. So we shall see. It may not even involve Hades at all. Who knows? She may just want to write about Persephone without Hades in it, and I would respect that too. So I am very excited. I think that this book is worth the hype. I think all of her books are worth the hype. She's an incredible author, so check this one out as well. The next book on the list is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is a romance novel that has been very recently hyped on BookTok, and I would say it is worth the hype. This is a romance novel that follows two people in STEM, and there is a teacher and a student, and there's a romance that ensues, and it's got fake dating, it has women in STEM. It's a really cute book. It's definitely not the steamiest of books, but it is adorable. It shows a lot about the hardships of being a woman in STEM. I'm definitely not in STEM, so I've never experienced a lot of that. So it was really interesting to see, and I think the way it was handled was done really well. So I definitely do recommend this book. It is a cute romance. The second to last book on this list is The People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Yes, it is worth the hype. It was one of my favorite books last year. This book follows two best friends who go on these trips together, and they have a falling out. And so one of them wants really badly to rekindle their friendship and go on another trip. So she plans this whole trip for them to go on to kind of become best friends again and really fix what went wrong. And instead they end up falling in love, which is just adorable. And I loved this book. I thought the banter and the friendship was just so cute, and it is definitely on my list of top romance novels of all time. I would definitely recommend this book. It is a lovely romance story, and it is so good. The last book on this list is a book you probably wish I would stop talking about, but I will not. And that is The Atlas Six by Olivia Blake. This book is one of the books that was self-published, got huge on BookTok, and then was picked up by Tor and published. And boy, oh boy, is this book good. It is a dark academia book following 6 magicians that are the best at what they do. And they are told only 5 of you will get into this secret society that is just full of knowledge, and they basically like create all of the knowledge in the world. And what they don't learn until later is that one of them must die. So what follows is this dark academia, really cool magic system book. I've definitely heard some mixed reviews. I've heard some people say that it is not good, that it doesn't make any sense, that the magic system is not fully realized. And I didn't mind that. I thought it added to the story because I ultimately just didn't feel as smart as these characters, so I was like, yeah, of course it wouldn't make sense to me. These people are geniuses. So, I don't know. I thought it was fine. I loved this book so much. I'm very excited for The Atlas Paradox, which comes out this year, which is the sequel. And the way this book ends is just like, it just blew my mind. So I'm so excited for the sequel. Yes, it's worth the hype. Yes, you should read it. Don't listen to the detractors. They're all wrong. I'm right. Obviously, that's a joke. If you don't like it, you're entitled to your opinion. That is totally fine. But it is a good book. So that is all of the hyped BookTok books I could find that I had read. As I said in the beginning, I said yes to most of these books, that they are worth the hype. I think that hyped books are normally hyped for a reason. So while there were some that didn't work for me, they might work for you. And some of the ones that worked for me may not work for you. So that's all right. We're all out here just trying to find the next best read. So I hope that you found some books that you are hoping to read and maybe you were scared to read. I would like to thank you all for your support. It means the world to me. Comment down below if you've read any of these and if you thought they were worth the hype as well, or if you did not enjoy them. I would love to know. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, thanks.